Welcome back. This is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Program Director for Communication, Media, and Ethics. And I'm here to continue a conversation that I started in part one of our mini lecture series. This deals with some of our week 2 readings, specifically Stuart Hall's Encoding, Decoding model. Very formidable theory about how mass communication works to persuade and connect with audiences. And so one of the ways in which we are going to attempt to decode Hall's theory properly is by example. We have a sample essay in Chapter 8 of our Communication Theory Millennial Popular Culture book, and Chapter 8 deals with Hall's model using the text or the cultural artifact of TV's Breaking Bad. Okay, and so what we want to understand here is that, like our basic communication model, any communication message has to be sent, right, by the sender, and then it travels along what we call a channel to the receiver. However, we know from studying the communication model that the sender to receiver message isn't perfect, and in fact it can be interfered with, hence the term interference, by what we also call noise. All right, this noise can be internal, it can be external. All right, it could be actual audio noise, right, something you hear, or it could be internal. All right, it could be a thought, a distraction, right, a feeling. And so we are both communicating and miscommunicating all the time, as many of you have, I'm sure, have some excellent stories about. And so one of the things this essay does, chapter 8 here, is it breaks down Hall's model, hopefully in as easy a way as possible. That easy is absolutely the wrong term there. In as accessible a way as possible, using the lens of television and a television text. And that ends up having some dual purpose for us, because we are in the game of not only studying communication theory, but we are interested in media studies. And so this is some nice synergy for us. And so, to cut to the chase, Hall presents us with what he's most interested in when it comes to the decoding process, right? Which is simple interpretation, right? That basic understanding of a message is processes of decoding. And so he gives us 3 types of decoding processes that I want to go into a little bit more detail for you all here today. The first is that dominant hegemonic position. So this is a really stuffy term. It might confuse a few that are perhaps less connected to that cultural studies language, that linguistics background, that ivory tower chitter chatter. But the dominant hegemonic position. When Hall is talking about this, he's in some ways talking about what is the author's intent, or what is the creator's meaning behind something. What did they really mean in that communication, or in our media sense, in that mass communication? So not only could we think about the author's intent, but we would also connect the dominant hegemonic position with the primary objective of a media message. And so it's that primary meaning, like, what do we want the majority of people taking in this message to believe or interpret, right? And how? And this is a tricky thing with media, because we have these sub-questions emerge, right? For example, who is primary, right? Whose primary objective, or who is the primary author? Is it the writer of a TV series? Is it the director of that episode? Is it the company producing the series? Is it the studio behind the production company, or is it the network that's airing it? Right? Is it Netflix? Is it Warner Brothers? Is it Bob? Is it Bob? It's just like trying to think of Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak. Yes, him. What's his stake in this? That brings up another term, stakeholders, right? Or stakeholders in real or figurative ways, right? Do they have an interest here? And so the tricky thing with media is this often leads to mixed messages, okay? And so that's why there can be some confusion on interpretation. Well, let's use that opportunity to segue into the second area of an decoding analysis, the negotiated position. All right, and so this we can understand this through maybe our ongoing use of television, right, as a way of thinking about media theory. And so, TV can be described in many terms. Some call some programs family entertainment, whereas other critics might refer to a certain program as liberal propaganda, right? So there is a lot of negotiation that goes on with the decoders, right? With the audiences or producers or critics or whoever. And it's important to consider that those factors always exist, right? And so that was a big breakthrough for media scholars, because at the time, there used to be this natural assumption, right? This assumption that we all just understood everything exactly the same way. And it's simply not the case, and it sure isn't the case in a contemporary culture, all right? And so that's why we always have these mixed messages. And so, ultimately, we want to think about differing audience receptions when it relates to the negotiated position, all right? And so I'll be right back with final thought on that third element of the decoding process for Stuart Hall's encoding decoding model.